Hello all, this is Alexander Elias here. I've got in front of you another project here. This is a application that I've titled Capture. It's just a video and camera application with simple photo cropping availability implemented into it. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the project, talk about some things that were difficult, and yeah, so we'll start here. So I'm using the modal segues to basically transition my views here. Pretty much for everything. Yep, that's pretty much it right there. And I've got 3 buttons. I'll give you a demonstration of the application running in just a second, and 2 views. So fairly simple in that respect. There's a cancel and a save button, and I'll show you how these things actually work. Alright, so we have the application up and running. You have pick, capture, and record. Now I am running the simulator, so I will not be able to demonstrate capture or record, unfortunately. Also, I'm missing my provisionary files for my iPad, so I'm actually unable to completely test this at the moment, as I do not have a dev account with Apple. With that said, we'll just be demonstrating the album pick here button. Now they should work relatively the same as they use, as I'll show you, basically the same functions with very slight modifications, and I'll show you how I use that. It is actually using all of the same functions, and I'm just pretty much just passing different variables to it and whatnot, or calling different variables, calling the same function for it in general. So anyways, we have the album here. You go ahead and click on the button. Obviously it opens up your album. It gives you the option of your photos, and you can then click on your photo, and this gives you the ability to crop and to resize your image. In theory, this is what happens after you take a picture or recording, at least actually take a picture in the editing mode. You can do the same thing. So we go ahead and hit choose. Now it shows us the actual picture up in the top here, the original image, and then down below the second image shows us the cropped image. As you can see, original, it looks like the original, and the crop looks like the crop. Now you can cancel, and you can see my console down here as I hit my different functions. You can hit cancel or you can save. So in this instance we'll hit cancel, and we can see when we go back into albums that that image was not saved. Now I will go ahead and show you the saved image here. Choose, pops up, save, your media was saved. Nice little alert there. And I'll show you how all that works. And we can see there is my image. It is saved into my albums. Pretty cool. Now the same sort of process should occur with capture and record, and you can see I've got a nice little console log telling me everything along my way. So let's start with the view controller H here attached to my first view. You can see obviously my properties that I've declared, and my functions that I've also declared. So just to start with, in my view did load, I have my confirm, I'll actually go back in here again, confirm VC controller, which I've called CVC, and that's this little guy right here, confirm view controller. You can see I allocate init and whatnot there, so that I can use that as I need to for the segue. Now we have the picker controller allocated and init in the view did load, because I should only have to do that once, as it's using the picker controller over and over again. So I've allocated that when the load happens for the first time, the view load happens. You can see that I'm allocating that, I'm setting the delegate as itself, and I'm enabling the ability to edit. And I'm not 100% sure whether the edit for record has to be false or not. Either way, I'm pretty sure it has to be set to true. Either way, I don't think it would crash that portion of it, but I don't really know because I can't test it. But I'll show you that it should be hitting the camera and record just fine. So anyways, we go down here to launch album, which is my function for album over here, and you can see my consoles there, and we've got the source type I'm defining, UI image picker controller source type photo library. So that brings us to the photo library, or it defines it, the source type there for the photo library portion, so that we open up that album button into the this little guy here, a photo library. Now the function for that is this. I'm presenting the view controller because it's a view controller, or it's a UI element, and presenting that with the view controller here, animated true, and that opens up this function here, which is this little guy, image picker controller. So that calls this function or method, and it has some, NS dictionary and some properties and whatnot that you use, as I'll show you here. So in this case, what's happening is in each button click, I'm calling that same method at different times, and I'm assigning the different different source types per the proper button and the media type as required for the video recording, so that it will record videos and save the video. And then again, I just call that the same as each one. It uses this method here, and we can see that I'm saving the first of all, saving the media type, which I believe, for at least with my testing here, the media type initially should come through as public.image. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, public.image. And it does for the album, and it should also for the capture. And for the record, the media type should be public.movie. And I have a simple if and else if determining that too, since the album and the capture buttons here, since these those source types for the camera and the photo library both use the public.image type or media type, we're just combining those two, so it uses basically the same object keys also. So that's really convenient in that sense. Really a neat implementation on Apple's or iOS part. So we're getting those images. We're getting the selected image and the edited image once the user has finished that, and that is if the public.image, or that is if the media type is equal to public.image. Now we've got an else if here, depending on that media type, whether it is equal to public.movie or public.image. The different if statements are called, obviously, or are used or skipped. Now for the movie, the record portion, we have an NS URL, so we're getting the path to where that video is being stored temporarily in memory. So we've titled that the path URL here initially, as it's the NS URL, and then we're defining that as the path string, which I've made a global variable for this function, or for this view controller. Now, once that is finished, once it's done one of the two, we then use the dismiss view controller to dismiss the picker controller, and then we manually call what I'm doing now. There may have been a better way. This is one way I believe I could have improved the app, but because of my, I guess, learning still that I didn't know, and well, there was a few other ways I thought of I could have done it. This was certainly one of the easiest to just manually call, and one of the, I assumed, most efficient ways to go about this is just to manually call the segue. So in that case, I call the segue. I couldn't necessarily figure out how to get from my view controller, my picker controller, to the to this my confirm view controller. And I didn't know how to do that and pass the variables. So I think this is the right way to go about that. I'm not entirely sure whether that is the most efficient way. I would assume, I looked into, view did load, or view, what is it? Yeah, not the view did load, view did finish loading and whatnot into those for the picking controller. Maybe there was I could do some dot notation for that, but I couldn't really find a way to do that. So I just resorted to calling the segue manually, and this performs my prepare for segue here, and we can see I've got if the a condition here whether the segue is confirmed, which it will be for all of them, so in a sense it's redundant, but it is what it is, so it's part of the requirement, I believe. And so we have the CVC, the confirm view controller here, as I defined above, and it applies the different variables, image variables, and the string to the CVC variables that I've defined in this, the confirm VC header, and you can see those are there. And then I've got my outlets for my view control, my scene, and my functions at the bottom there also. And I am depending on, now this was not actually too tricky, and there could be a better way to do it too, but I thought this was a fairly neat way of managing it. In the view did load, well, first I initiate and allocate a alert view, and I initiate it with a your media was saved message. And so that's prior to the view did load. And then we have the two conditions here, and I guess I could have done else ifs, but I pretty much, it does the same thing if you just ifs, and since the statements are a little bit different, or fairly drastically different, I didn't think it mattered too much. But anyways, so we have if the image top from is not equal to nil, which is the image I am sending via the segue here. So I'm sending all of those variables to the new view controller no matter what. So it's either sending null values or a nil value of some sort, or it's sending that variable to the confirm view controller, or making it available to the confirm view controller no matter what. So depending on whether that is nil or not, it then applies the image to that IB outlet. And in this case, I've put a and in this case, what I've gone about here is just adding a label to the top of the to the top of the view controller. So actually there's a label on these two here that are currently of null values. There's nothing inside of the labels, and then I've got two images. So those labels are on top of the images. Now if again, I haven't been able to completely test this. If the video is saved, it will apply this text, please save your video, or please save your video, period, your file path is beneath. And it will then apply that text to the labels. And then it also displays the path string. Yeah, and I haven't been able to get to that part because I don't have the provision files, but in theory this should work. And it doesn't conflict obviously with the album portion, so that's nice. Yeah, so anyway, so we get that. We have my cancel button, which just dismisses my view and goes back to the root view controller. And then we have the, and I'm using a modal for that in the storyboards. I've got my save, which then has some conditions depending on whether, again, if it's the image or whether it is the path string has a value of some sort. So depending on those two, it does two different things, saving the images to the saved photo albums or the saved photo albums. So in that case, it does two different tasks, and that works so far. Again, I haven't been able to test that completely, but then we have the image function in which, and the video function in which it is actually finishing that save there, and it provides some errors if something goes wrong, and if it's completed correctly, it then allows us to display some different alerts. So that's pretty much the sum of this project here. Thanks for watching. I believe I covered a decent amount of everything there. Yeah, that should be it. Thank you.